What's up, boys and girls? Welcome to another episode of Culturally Irrelevant, the podcast where we cover a selection of today's culturally significant topics while staying grounded in the biblical worldview and having a ton of fun along the way. My name is Miguel. These are my absolute best friends and soon to be yours, Will, David, and Brandon. We're coming at you this week with a shorter episode. We just got done simulcasting the entire presidential address.
What is it actually called? What was it actually called?
It's a joint session.
Joint
session. All right. Yeah. It was fun. Yeah, you're not going to be able to find the recording of that anywhere, but it's just a reminder, join us live. We do it every Tuesday, 9 o'clock. So
and we're going to make it a habit. Every presidential address, we are going to be live streaming it.
Well, we're actually live streaming every Tuesday. Just so everybody knows.
Oh,
we're on Twitch. Yeah, we're always live streaming. So if you want to see, how the sausage gets made per se, join us.
9 Brandon, it wasn't a joint session in the way that you probably are thinking of it, because you're probably thinking of like joint session, but it was like a dual session, I guess you could call it. You know what I mean? Like,
two houses.
The
Senate
Senate
would have been much cooler.
Like a
Everybody
joint.
would have chilled out.
We're having a joint session.
I mean, I'll tell you what. One half of that room needed something to mellow them out because it was wild to watch an entire half of the room sitting there with their little signs and their booze. Someone got kicked down like 5 minutes in.
That's what I was going to say.
Listen, Donald Trump.
By the end,
Trump
it was
is
only a
not
quarter of the room because everybody got forced out of the chamber.
Crazy.
Donald Trump's not an innocent party here. Okay, he provoked a little bit of it.
We love provocative. We love provocative.
No,
he was telling you strong truths.
That's right.
Speaking
truth to power.
Give me a highlight that stuck to you, Will.
So
into the microphone.
I don't know. A lot of this is just like devoid of legislative agenda, and I just, as someone who is a firm believer in the process and someone who wants to kind of return to not sense of normalcy per se, but to regular order, I didn't hear that, and it's okay. Like, I understand that we have an agenda to push forward, and I'm for that. But the problem when you have these different presidents with a strong executive branch is we're just going to swing. The country is going to swing wildly from one direction to another with each turn and flip of political party controlling the executive branch, and that's frustrating because, like, we can say that DEI has been eliminated, and by all means in the federal workforce it has been eliminated, but the problem is, with one stroke of the pen, if the Democrat is in after President Trump, like, it all just comes back to you.
I do have a question regarding that, though. Do you think there's any truth to what Donald Trump alluded to during the address? And I know he said it in jest, but this idea of, I know they're not going to cheer for it, but the left is happy about this as well. And I wonder if some of these things gives them an out from the chaos that they kind of created for themselves. So something, for instance, like DEI is, they know it's not good for business. It's not good for government. It's not good for scholarly institutions. So now if they can just kind of rest in what Donald Trump has set up, let him be the scapegoat, and just kind of cruise in that wake, is there a chance that they hold on to it?
Well, I think there's a portion of the Democrat Party who would like to feel that way. I think the vast majority of the Democrat Party is moved, that especially the part that has moved progressively left, uses these talking points and uses these social agendas to fundraise in a very aggressive manner. And so by shutting it all down completely and trying to return to some air quote normalcy, trying what we would consider normal, you're like cutting your nose off to spite your face. Like, they're not going to be willing to go along with that. And I don't think that the Democrat machine that used to be, I mean, you used to watch Democrats like go lockstep in every single vote that they took and every talking point that they had. And now with the advent of the squad and with all of these little factions, micro factions that happen in the Democrat Party, and it's much in the same way as the Republican Party, like, well, the Republican Party's kind of gotten used to dealing with it. I mean, you think back as recently or as far back as the Tea Party Express, right? That was a faction of the Republican Party, and we've been dealing with this for a while. We know how to handle it. We know how to get everybody on the same page. Democrats do not.
So much.
They have ruled their party with an iron fist, totalitarianism, authoritative group of people at the top. They don't know how to deal with dissent, and so my thing is my assumption is that there are going to be a lot of people that are still using that as a talking point and bolstering it, pushing it into the national in the national light in order to raise money.
That's what I mean, though. Just because it's a talking point doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to, not only be legislated, but even with, an executive order. I mean, they've been talking about, one instance or one example is, like student debt for how long now? It's like it's never going to happen. But that's still a talking point that they all throw around, and Biden tried it; it got struck down in the courts, and so they have all these things, but it never seems to come to fruition. And they run on the same thing every year with seemingly no intention on actually making it a reality.
Brandon, I think a bigger picture look at this, right? Like the 5,000 foot view or 30,000 foot view,
Let's go higher.
Dude, let's make it 100,000 foot view here.
Hit me.
It is that a lot of these people on the left are radicals and they are Marxists. And I hate how people throw terms around like, oh, fascist, communist, this. No. Marxism is a real ideology that these people believe in. And all it is the destruction of the West. It's the destruction of the family, destruction of values, destruction of major institutions. And the positions they hold defy logical reasoning, right? Like that makes no sense, right? So you're arguing with someone on X and they make a point that makes no sense and you come back with a logical response. It doesn't matter to them. That's all they care about. So to watch the State of the Union, or it's not the State of the Union, to watch this joint session speech tonight, it showcased cultural Marxism is alive and well in the Democrat Party. And all they care about is destroying values that America was built on. And America was built on Christian values. And
they hate those values.
Certainly. They 100% do. So that's the main takeaway from me. We can dive in and nitpick and stuff. Like a lot of fun stuff that happened tonight. But I think that view of the destroy the West really showed itself tonight.
Yeah, I guess to put a bow on it for me, I hope that over these next 4 years, we're able to culturally kind of move the ball across the goal line to the point where it makes it really hard for them to double down on that kind of stuff and really have any hope of winning in the future. And I think you're already seeing it. You have a lot of the largest corporations in the world are all kind of full steam ahead when it comes to the cultural shift that's coming with the Trump administration. And I think
that's a reactionary thing. Though.
It's certainly a reactionary thing, but I think they were also looking for an excuse. They don't want DEI in their workforce. It doesn't do anything good for them. They're doing it because they feel like they have to. They don't want any of these things, any of this nonsense. The reason why they were so quick to jump on board with it all is because they've been looking for an off-ramp on, they drove themselves into a corner and they finally had the opportunity to get off and they took it. So
well, here's what you need to watch for then.
Sure.
If the Democrat Party as a whole, the establishments that don't want that you're claiming don't want this, you are going to see legitimate candidates rise up in primaries and actively seek out the squad, the AOCs, the Jamal Bowman's. Well, he's already gone, but you're going to see people, these radicals, kind of start getting picked off. And if that be the case, that's great. I would love to have that happen. I don't think they're going to do that.
Miguel, shifting a bit, I would love to hear your take on what happened with the Epstein file, quote unquote, release. And just how you viewed that whole situation. I think it's an interesting thing that happened.
I thought it was pretty disgusting that it turned into, I mean, I guess we can't really call them memes, but it kind of turned into like a meme parade. Everybody's just taking cool pictures with these binders and trying to be popular and trying to make a statement. At the end of the day, we're dealing with someone who, quote unquote, allegedly ran pedophile rings to influence powerful people all over the world and trap them for blackmail. And all of this was done with other people's approval. Like, it wasn't really done in secret, except that it was done, kept from the public eye. But what I'm saying is all this happens, and then suddenly it just becomes, oh, I got this cool white binder, and oh, look at me, I'm an influencer, look how cool I am. But actually nothing happened. And then I know we saw this letter from Pam Bondi where she's trying to put her correspondence with Kash Patel, I guess, out in the public eye and saying, like, look, we found out that the stuff is being hidden. The head of the New York FBI department, he's stepping down because maybe he was involved in this cover-up, and now there's apparently thousands of pages of documents that have finally been turned over, and everybody's going through them. I would love to see that be the reality, that these are getting gone through, and that's going to be exposed. But honestly,
now they're taking it a step further now, and Pam Bondi is coming out saying that they have to go through a series of redactions because there's national security interest in the Epstein files that were handed to him. It's like,
Israel.
come on.
And at the end of the day, this is where I'm blanking on this guy's name now. He was a whistleblower.
Edward Snowden?
No, not Edward Snowden. The other guy.
DC Drano?
No.
No,
I can't.
I can
Julian
see.
Julian Assange.
Julian Assange.
Thank you, sir. He has the quote where he says the Epstein files, something along the lines of the Epstein files won't ever be released because the people that are controlling that blackmail don't want to lose that power. And I wonder if, like, is there something like that at play where actually none of this is going to see the light of day because there's too much stuff involved and nobody wants to give that up. I don't know, but honestly, after seeing the dog and pony show last week, I feel like we're never going to see these files in a way that's meaningful, in a way that says, look, America, this is what we found. This is what we're doing about it. This is how justice is going to happen. XYZ. I don't think we ever get there.
I want to hear Will's take on this because I haven't really talked to you much about it.
Well, I think that there probably are national security interests in those files. One of the reasons why they were stuck in New York, the files were stuck in New York, was because in every file that moves, every case that moves, there needs to be chain of custody throughout all of it. And every single time an evidence box is moved, there's a piece of paper with name on it, and if you're the last name, you're the last person responsible for it. So think about all of the mountains and mountains of data and information that was collected over the entire investigation. And they, Main Justice, the FBI in DC, don't want to be the last ones holding on to that. They don't want evidence sitting that sizable amount of evidence sitting in their hands, right? They want somebody else to maintain that. So I think that part of the problem initially was they released what they thought they had, right, as much as they could. And then what ended up happening, for whatever reason, the files, I think my assumption is that in an effort to try to get them back, they realized that, holy cow, we can't be the ones holding on to this because this is just too much. And so now they're coming up with a different mechanism to at least get to the New York, the files that are currently held in New York. Now, aside from all of this, there's this sideshow at the top of FBI New York, and he's got his he's upset. And so I personally think that we will probably have a little bit more at some point down the road. But to David's point, like I don't. We're never going to see the everything. Gun. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think we should. I don't think there's some things that the public needs to be protected from because it would cause too much question throughout the I'll give you a really good example. Speaker Johnson goes through the first, several days of his tenure as speaker, talking about how we don't need to support Ukraine anymore. We don't need to send foreign aid to these different groups. It's all the talking points that the four of us have talked about previously on this show. But what happened when he went in for his first detailed intel brief, came out and he changed his tune? And I think it's because there are things that are hidden away from the American public on purpose to protect us. Not to say that the government should be the one in charge of everything, that we should implicitly trust the government and whatever they say. But I do think that there are some things that probably the general public shouldn't know. That's kind of the same way I look at the Epstein files.
I mean, I just want to clarify for the record, because you are our most insider person, that was my point, not David's point. I made the point. The files not supplied. Thank you.
Whatever.
But
it's 11:30 at night.
Yeah, it is late. But what really angered me about this entire situation was, I agree with you, Will. I agree with you, Miguel. We're never going to know the truth, right? These things are going to be redacted forever. But Pam and then these stupid idiot influencers made it such a big deal that they took these selfies and that they did this whole dog and pony show. I don't know where dog and pony show comes from, but we should do more of that.
I don't know.
Those sound fun.
That was the problem with all of this.
Correct.
It wasn't the chain of custody. It wasn't the amount of information that was being held in New York. All of this is explainable, and we can find ways around it. The problem and the mistake that the White House made is they allowed themselves to get suckered in to whatever it was that we saw last week that was an absolute abomination from a public relations standpoint, and it was malpractice from an investigative standpoint.
Yeah,
and
how
how
hard media is done. But Pam Bondi knew all along. This wasn't a surprise to her that the binders that they gave her, it was
blank pages.
It was meaningless pages. There's a couple thousand of them, and most of them have been available to the public since the Biden administration.
It's been, you can find most of what's in those binders on Google. Most, if not all of it readily available on Google.
Meanwhile, so we have a couple thousand pages that are available. Some of them were put in the binder. Some of them are available. Some have been made available. And then they said the number of files, the number of pages that are being held up in the New York FBI office is in the millions. And it's this isn't even to say this isn't the tip of the iceberg is underplaying it. This is
so think about
literally
this.
Nothing.
So think about the review process at that point. We now have to move the boxes, all of that information, from FBI New York, chain of custody, down to the Washington field office, where it then gets copied, physically copied, and put into the exact. So make a duplicate, make a replica of everything that's in all of that data, all of that investigative work, so that it can then be turned over to DOJ lawyers for the legal team within the DOJ to review and see what is acceptable and what is not acceptable for the general public to know, that doesn't have national security interests, that wouldn't put people in harm's way, direct harm's way.
Are you able to give an example of what it looks like of something that would be in the Epstein files that would put people in harm's way?
I don't know.
I got one.
Don't know.
I got one. Tom Hanks raped a baby, and he made Castaway. So that'll put people in harm's way.
Well, and here's the thing. This is what I was going to say. I think there's two sides to this.
Thank you.
I agree that...
Wait, hold on. 1920. We'll call it 1920. Okay.
Yeah. Can I get some swears out while we're going to cut this?
No. We get one cut per episode.
I think there's two sides to this. I agree that I don't need to see everything, because I think that I think there's a huge swath of the population that is probably interested in the goriness of it. People have this fascination with terrible things, reading about them, experiencing them vicariously, right? And so I don't need details. I don't need lascivious inside storytelling. I don't need to know. Oh, this
You don't need to
politician,
know,
that
but
politician.
you
Let me
this
ask you
is
this.
the other side.
But you
This
should
is
Let
the
me
other
ask
side
this
of it.
question.
This is the other side.
This
of
is America.
Is that I
Do
don't
you-
want to. I don't need to know all those findings, but I do want to know that yes, things were discovered that were operating nefariously. We are finding those sources and those systems that enabled it. We're tearing it down. We're whatever. Like I want to know that something's being done. I guess is what I'm saying. Because the guy offed himself in jail, and then nothing happened. And as far as I am aware, layman Miguel sitting here recording a podcast with his buddies. As far as I'm aware, nothing actually happened other than Epstein got caught. He was killed. It became a public thing. Everybody's crazy conspiracy theories, and it's all done.
Well,
I wanna know- I wanna know the
but
things-
that's it. But the
That's
thing
true.
is that you have. I mean, we know it's not even a question. We know for certain that there were many high-profile. I mean, why would Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell be doing anything that they were doing if it wasn't to facilitate these high-profile people to have these relationships with these young girls? Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't have gone to prison in the first place if this wasn't actually happening. So we know for sure it was happening. So who was it happening with? These people are still out there, and if this is, it's
I
just
agree with
hard.
that.
It's
I
just
agree with
hard to
that.
look at this.
And they should be exposed.
Right. It's hard to look at this situation and say it's like, well, for the sake of blackmailing somebody one day, and it's like,
And that's where I agree with
we
Brandon.
need to
It's
need
like-
to stand firm on what's right and true, and if that means that Prince Andrew is being blasted out for the world to know
Yeah.
that he was involved with this. Sorry, Prince Andrew, if you weren't, is alleged.
Well,
But,
that's where I
like,
agree with you too, because the whole idea of man, I lost my train of thought. I did agree with you on something, and I forgot what it was. I'm sorry.
I just think we've gone through such an era of non-transparency for the past 50 years. It's time to try the other side of things. Let's try to put it, if we make it a habit of putting it all out there. And I get, I don't need to know, the layout of, a compound in
That's what I was gonna
the
say.
Taliban.
If
That's
there's
fine.
some
I get
secretive-
that.
If there's some hack to my iPhone that is what Epstein used to keep all of this stuff illegally hidden,
Mhm.
and this hack on your iPhone can enable any American to do this also. Okay, fine. Don't tell me if that's the case. Don't tell me stuff that's dangerous, but
Right. But
Would
if-
something-
would you all agree that Jeffrey Epstein was previously known to federal authorities?
of course.
it sounds
He was
like
a-
it, yes.
he-
All right,
was an informant.
Yeah, okay. Would you all agree that this was not a domestic engagement? This was international,
Yeah, he's
Yes.
Mossad.
right? And there's people everywhere
he's
coming from
Mossad.
all over the world.
Yes.
Okay. Would you believe, or would you not believe, that there are people on this list that were they themselves informants, plants, or otherwise associated with MI6, CIA,
Mossad.
Mossad?
I mean, if you're a plant or you're a secret agent and your work involves getting into these environments and doing these things, then yeah, you should be outed because your job isn't that important. However, if it's
Disagree times a million.
No, well, yeah.
You
No,
can't
if you're-
disagree.
if your justification is, well, it was my job to go into that place and do those things with minors and be a part of these systems
No,
because I was working
You-
it, then
you-
you don't
Miguel.
deserve secrecy.
You infiltrate. This is infiltrating a ring, right? So I'll give you a good example. So in my foreign travels with the government, when I was a lead advance, so I would be in country for at least 2 weeks before the president or the vice president, whoever I'm traveling for, would be in country, and we had a group of people who are called counter surveillance, right? So as a lead person for the U.S. government on a heavily watched international trip, I had people from other countries following me and watching me. and spying on me, doing whatever. We in the United States had counter surveillance teams watching them watch me. And let's say that one of them got a wild hair one day, and I'm walking back from a local restaurant back to the hotel, and they decide these guys who are spying on me decide, this guy knows a lot. We want to pick him up, and I get caught and dragged into a car, and they speed away with me. It is not the responsibility of the counter surveillance team to pursue those guys that have me at that point held hostage. It is their job to call it in, give all the information they can, and then continue on their merry way. And I would assume that we have kind of the same situation happening here. It is not the responsibility of the informant that we're infiltrating what is an awful crime ring. It is not their job to physically be the one to whip out guns and start popping people who are doing these unspeakable acts. It is simply their responsibility to data gather and to pass it back to the people that they need to pass it back to.
Well, I don't think that was Miguel's point. I think Miguel's point was if they were themselves were taking part in the horrific crimes.
I would just say in your analogy,
protected.
Yeah, in your analogy, protect the counterintelligence agencies, but still expose the people that drove the car and kidnapped you.
Yeah,
Don't keep those people hidden.
I totally agree. If, like, a
totally,
guy went on the
that's what I'm
plane and
saying.
he was like chilling and like he watched things happen and then he reported it back to the
Too
US
close
government.
to the microphone.
So
Me?
I guess
Yes.
So I guess my question for y'all is, do you think that nothing's going to get released from this point moving forward? Because I think things are going to be released. I just think it's going to be redacted.
I don't know.
I honestly think nothing will be
No,
released of significance
I think
from this point.
I think significant moves will still be made because of the chain of custody process that they're going through right now to make sure that they have it, that they have everything, a full universe of Epstein files that they can then draw off of. I think that we will get stuff. I don't think that it's going to be everything, and I think that there will always be people out there that are pissed off that they didn't get it all, but I do think that we are going to still see movement in here. I mean, mark my words. But honestly, you guys are just so hung up on this one thing. We should be asking this of a lot of different events. Like, you remember the Las Vegas shooter? The one that was the largest, perpetrated the largest mass shooting?
Yeah, it was gone the next day.
What about the recent assassination attempts and stuff coming out that maybe one of these assassination attempts may be connected to Ukraine of all places? Like, it's true. There's tons of things out there that people aren't telling us about.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I just want transparency, and I think the Epstein case, I think that's why it's kind of unique in people's minds, because it's not even that. You know, I feel like pretty by and large people were moved on. Not moved on like they didn't care, but we were willing to accept kind of this is where we're at now. But then whenever Pam Bondi stands up and Kash Patel stands up and says, you know, we're going to get this released day one. And then
The reality is they didn't understand. The reality is they did not understand exactly what it was going to take to get that.
And that may be true. I mean, it's just an unfortunate reality of the situation to where
I would probably fall in a trap like that too. Do a bunch of big talk.
But it's like they
think about it. They came off of 18 months.
Right.
18 months of campaigning on this.
But they brought it back into the kind of the public eye, and then they just
through the campaign they sure did
catastrophically to deliver on this issue to
they
where
moved faster than the federal government could move in order to make
David,
in order to facilitate
David,
this.
You're such a nice guy that I see you holding your microphone, but you never want to like jump in and cut people off. But can you wrap this Epstein files up for us? Do you have any thoughts that you've been holding that mic on to share?
Oh, I've tried to interrupt, but you guys are a bunch of chatty Cathys. So.
I know we are. You just got to get in and go, bro.
I guess to make a final point, unfollow DC Drano on X. He's a terrible person. His first name is Rogan, and it sounds facetious, but it's not, because what these influencers did, and I think it was a mistake by the entire administration, but they capitalized on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on that day that everything went down, DC Drano, his name's Rogan, he said, "I regret nothing." it's okay to make a mistake and then admit to the broader public you've made a mistake. He didn't do that. He claimed everything I did today. He live streamed the binder on a potato. It was the most blurry thing you've ever seen. And I just want more people to be honest. I want more people to be straight up with us. And I wish Pam didn't go on TV and say what I saw on my desk disgusted me. We've all seen everything in those binders. So that, I don't know, for whatever reason, that entire shenanigan really angered me. Yeah. And I think I agree with Will. I think we may see more, but I'm also just...
We're going to see more.
It just is tough. It is tough for me when we see all these people who are, you know, on the top of the conservative, you know, hill in terms of everyone looks up to us and we have this binder.
Yeah.
Deliver nothing. That really angered me. So
but I think it's going to have a good outcome. We're finally getting uproot all of the grifters that they don't care. They don't actually care. All they care about is getting the headline. They proved it the other day. You talk about DC Drano saying, "I regret nothing," and it's like, yeah, of course you regret nothing because you had. You put up the most numbers that you have since you started your account. Of course you don't regret anything. But at the end of the day, you're nothing more than a provocateur. You're not trying to change culture. You're not trying to do anything that's actually productive. You're just trying to make people upset.
This administration is a victim of its own success.
I can see that. Because
this is how they won the election in 2024, was utilizing the machine that Rogan O'Handley, or whatever his name is, DC Drano, is simply a cog in the machine that Elon Musk unleashed on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And the White House seems to, at least for all appearances, still be stuck in campaign mode and focusing on not serious people doing not serious things.
Wait, what are you talking about? The libs of TikTok is the greatest political mind that we have, and philosophical, by the way, mind that we have today.
Exactly, that's a great point. They're still so wrapped around the axle when it comes to like influencing the influencers,
and
having
that's a great line.
Yeah, that's the frustrating thing that I think that we're going to struggle with, or they're going to struggle with over the next, really for next several months, maybe the next couple of years, because what's going to end up happening, and I know I belabor the point when I talk about this, but they're not doing anything that's consequentially changing the structure of government. That's not passing new laws. It's not enshrining any of this into the ledger or into history, other than
really
just
codified anything yet.
Yeah,
it's just
other than just digital history where we can capture it on, because the internet is forever. Like apart from that, like what are we doing here? Like let's be serious. Let's start to be serious. Just try.
Yeah, I mean that's a good reminder that above all things we should continually keep this administration in prayer, because I think many of us we prayed hard for them to win. But I think winning almost seems to be the easy part. Because to win, you just got to get people riled up, get some good talking points, get some good mission statements, get some good future imagery into people's minds. Rah, 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 and you win. But now that you've won, now you actually got to get it all done. And that almost feels like a bigger mission. So a good reminder for us to constantly be thinking of these leaders and praying wisdom and the Lord's providence over them, that things would work, that things would move through, that changes would actually happen.
Yeah, I just hope that we don't get caught up in the system that the left created for themselves, to where they pandered so much to the influencer crowd that they eventually allowed them to lead. And I mean, that has been at least a part of what's been so destructive on the left, and where they've gone is they lost control of the monster that they built, and we could easily go in the same way. So
my concern,
hopefully, it's a wake-up call.
I hope the same thing too, because my concern is that the United States, the American people, go the way of the Israelites in Exodus after they've been released from captivity in Egypt and are wandering on through to the promised land, and it's not going great. And they turn to Moses and they're like, you took us away from, meat pots and warm fires, even though we were in captivity in Egypt. You took us away from all that just to have us instead die in the hands of the Egyptians. We're going to die hungry and cold out here in the wilderness. And it's a testament to their lack of faith in the sovereignty of God. And that's kind of, to Miguel's point, like, we have been given as a country a wonderful opportunity to reset. But winning doesn't mean that we won.
No.
We still have a lot of winning left to do.
Right. Just give us an opportunity.
Right.
Fun time.
And I hate the word potential because it's potential is success unrealized. And that's where we are right now. We have a lot of potential, but that doesn't mean that we've been successful in anything.
Yeah. And
I sound so jaded when I say that.
It was beautiful. But just so anybody that doesn't have any idea what we're talking about, because I don't think we ever actually explained. I know we're kind of far into the conversation. Just real quick, so they released, the first version of the Epstein files, and allegedly, like all these conservative influencers just happened to be at the White House, and they passed these binders with the Epstein files prior to making them public to everybody. And all of these influencers,
everything was already public. That was in the binder.
We found that out later. But then the influencers, the conservative influencers, all walked out, smiling and waving and acting like it was, their birthday party, holding up the binders and having pictures taken of them and taking selfies and everything. When of course, we all understand the horrors of what those binders, contain. So it was just a gross thing that lacked the reverence that we should treat a situation like this, because real people were really hurt by it. But anyways, so we had a horrible day for the administration on whenever it was, last Tuesday, I can't remember. But that was followed up by something pretty crazy that we'd be remiss not to spend some time talking about. And that was old Mr. Zelensky visits the White House. And he had a great day. He didn't have a great day. But it was a great day. Because somebody finally just told him the way that it is.
I gotta see if I can find it was like a meme that was a caricature of the conversation, like putting it in gangster language.
I don't know if I want to hear that.
But like so everybody on the left has been re-characterizing the conversation of like, I can't believe that they were insulting and blah. And this version was just like Trump saying,
we lost shady fans.
Do you want to play nice? Do you want to have peace? Well, no. All right. Well, you don't want to have peace. GTFOH until you want to have peace. I thought the whole thing was a pretty strong stance from not only the financial backer of everything that's been going on, or the primary financial backer of everything that's going on there, but also, quote unquote, still the leader of the free world. Like saying, look, we're not playing games here. We know what needs to be done. Are you going to do it? You want to play along? No? All right. Why don't you go and come back when you've had time to settle and think and talk to your parents, and they'll tell you to come back to your teacher and apologize and ask your teacher for help with your homework, and I'll help you with your homework. But if you're just going to stay here and be cocky, I'm not going to help you with your homework. Go outside and play and come back when you're ready to try for real. I thought it was a pretty good look for us, contrary to what everybody else is saying.
The greatest thing that I thought happened in that meeting was somebody being Trump finally just told the world what we all already knew, but we're trying to pretend wasn't true. That being, Ukraine cannot win. They cannot win this war. There's no reality in which they come out and defeat Russia. So we're just pouring all of this money into Ukraine getting nothing in return when we all know it's nothing more than virtue signaling, and it's ultimately people dying.
Virtue signaling, and corruption. Somebody, I don't remember who it was. I think it was a guest on Jerry, but it might not have been. But somebody was talking about how you just visit any wealthy city in America and you're finding tons of Ukrainians with tons of money spending it on tons of things. Like, so clearly there's corruption going on there. And at the end of the day, someone's got to say, no mas. Or sorry, no more. The official language
That means no more.
English.
Yeah, it's English now.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
It's the same thing. We are the official language of the culturally irrelevant podcast. We just follow whatever the United States does.
Right. Look, I'm sorry that this episode has kind of leaned a little bit heavy extra politics.
Wait, are we not going to talk about the coolest thing that's happened in the past 4 years?
I don't know. I feel like half of the panel is fading fast, and myself including. So we might just have to stash some stuff for next week's episode. Give us a little tease.
I will say that the move that the president did with Zelensky was brilliant, and perspective is the most important thing for anything that we do. And what everyone needs to recognize is that the crown jewel here is the Middle East. And what he has done,
which has conveniently been forgotten for the last 3 years of this war.
Well, you muted yourself. You missed the cough and then muted your voice. Cough came through loud and clear.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
not that one.
There you
go. There you
go. Sorry. So what he did was force Zelensky to, one, kind of recognize where his position is in this world, and two, use the meetings with Vladimir Putin to kind of leverage all of this to get it to end, because at the end of the day, ain't nobody winning that war. You can say that you won the war, but Russia's losing and Ukraine is losing. So they're both looking for an exit ramp here. Donald Trump gave them just that in peace. But the real reason why you want to bring peace to that conflict is to get Putin on your side, because the only people that the Middle East, specifically Iran, listens to is Vladimir Putin. So if you can get Putin on your side on this Ukraine thing, you can then say to Putin, here's what we need you to do. We need you to go and do whatever it is that we need with Iran, whether that's be to give us all the information that you have on their nuclear proliferation, or to broker some sort of deal with Iran to try to get them to de-escalate, or to give us the information that we need as the United States to act upon causing some artificial instability in the region to see some change. Because I think that Iran itself, the country, is ripe for it. I think that the people are not are ready for that change. But you got that's the crown jewel, man. Like you can fix that problem. It makes the Russia-Ukraine conflict look so small. Because
that's a wild perspective that had not even trickled into my conscious at all. That you're playing a small game of chess because you know the bigger game of chess is going to be so much better off for it. That's pretty
think
crazy.
About it.
You get two queens.
Who is Russia? Who is Russia and who are Ukraine who are they going to bother? Like, they're over there killing each other with drones at this point. Like, this is pedestrian nonsense. One EMP just fixes that problem. There is a problem in Iran. Iran does have capabilities that are much further advanced than they were 10 years ago. Thanks to our own doing and our poor leadership under Barack Obama. And so, in order for us to fix that and address that very real problem, we have to have some allies that are potentially unsavory,
but connected.
Allies, but connected and can send a message. And that's exactly what he's utilizing Putin right now to do, I believe.
And I don't want to stretch this out too much longer because I know it's late, but it has been wild to watch NATO and the the EU like flip cards on this. I understand that there's a lot of hyperbole on the internet, so I'm not saying that the UN and the EU really want a World War III. But then you hear some of the comments and some of the stances that they're taking publicly, and it almost does give this vibe of they realize that there's a president out here trying to get peace, and they don't want peace. Whether it's because the EU has their own military industrial complex that wants to keep profiting, or whether there's some levels of corruption that we're not realizing, or whatever it is, it's very clear that suddenly everybody's not like, yeah, let's solve the problem and make sure that these countries aren't killing each other and that this doesn't escalate. One person shows up and says, yo, let's fix this, and everybody's like, no, don't fix it. It's
both
crazy.
both the EU and NATO are incredibly corrupt organizations.
Well, they're incredibly opportunistic. They don't want World War III. They know World War III is very bad for their purposes. What they want is to be able to spend the next, 2 months dunking on the United States and trying to posture
while taking our money.
Right. Do you think we'll leave NATO?
Man, the next week is going to be wild to watch.
That's a very good question. Like I think that he's going to use that threat just like he used it in 2017. The threat of leaving NATO got them to pony up. I think that's kind of where he still exists. I don't think that he actually is going to pull out of NATO, but it's a good threat to have.
Hold that card.
Yeah, and just say like, listen, you don't take us seriously, we're not going to take you seriously. You think about every day those people wake up and they go to work over in NATO. They wake up and they go to work in a $1 billion building that the United States built, and they hate us. It's a wild thing to say, but that's kind of, I think, what has made Donald Trump and many like him and this America First foreign policy movement. That's what has made everyone angry, is the fact that they've just taken us for a ride and then they turn around and they spit on us at the same time.
Right. They're proving his point all along the way.
Right.
Yeah. Well, David, are you ready with your stunt?
I haven't thought about it. I haven't thought about that.
What are you going to do? Can you do a headstand on your couch?
I have a plastic bag. I can suffocate myself.
Okay.
Try to drink an entire gallon of milk. I want to see you
have
do
a gallon of milk.
No, I don't have milk. I mean, I don't think a headstand is a stunt. I can do that, but it's kind of like boring.
Can you sneeze with your eyes open?
No.
Impossible task.
I feel bad because I kind of did fail. Like I didn't think of anything.
Can you cross your eyes 15 times in a row and see if they get stuck?
No.
I will say I have a recurring, I'm going to call it a recurring medical issue, but I don't know. It's happened like 4 or 5 times in my life where I've laughed so hard at something that my eyes have crossed. I can't uncross them for like 30 seconds. And it happened to me once driving. My sister, I don't even remember what my sister said, but she was just riffing on something, and I'm dying laughing behind the wheel, and suddenly my eyes are just like stuck crossed together.
I've never heard of that.
And I had to blink a bunch of times until they would uncross. It's happened to me several times. It's pretty terrifying.
You are well on your way to being a cross-eyed individual.
I think so.
Shoot.
I think
we'll need to find a backup host.
Culturally irrelevant long enough. I do want to extend an apology to, I think, a Twitch user, Crusader Orthodox, who submitted a great question about who we might want to meet from the Bible that wasn't Jesus. Who would we go back in time and why? I think we're going to use that and cover that next episode. That might be a little fun extra. Ezra. Okay. The most
too close to the mic.
Sorry.
Ezra.
No, it's the one that screamed Ezra.
Oh, no, guys, don't answer it now. We're teasing it for Crusader Orthodox.
Wait, before we go.
Okay,
not
but
Paul.
it might be Elijah.
Before we go, who can name every book of the Bible in order?
Not me, but my wife can. She sings it. She knows the song by
Genesis,
heart.
Exodus, Leviticus.
Okay.
Without a song.
Judges, Ruth, 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st Kings, 1st, Chronicles, 3rd Nehemiah, Esther, goes on, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Psalms,
in English.
Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Isaiah, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zechariah, Haggai, Zephaniah, Malachi. Come on, baby. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Isaiah.
This has been an episode of Culturally Irrelevant, a production by us. Check it out on X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, or any other major podcast platform by searching for The Culturally Irrelevant Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back with the boys next week.